Hello and welcome back to the Whispering Pages Mysteries. Today we continue The Whispering Library by Penelope Graves. Let's begin. Chapter 14. Composure. Richard Harrow prided himself on composure. Ashwood knew this. It was part of his construction. The immaculate coats, the measured tone, the benevolent nod at fundraisers. He was the sort of man who could disagree without raising his voice, who could refuse without seeming unkind. Which is why the fracture mattered. It happened at the Saturday farmers' market. The market unfolded along the high street as it always did. Trestle tables of chutneys, handmade soaps arranged in symmetrical rows, bunches of carrots still wearing a little soil as proof of authenticity. Ellie had not intended to attend, but avoiding the village square felt like surrender, and she had no intention of surrendering anything. Sam trailed behind her, holding a paper cup of coffee and the expression of a man attending a live broadcast. "Okay," he murmured, scanning the crowd. "This is tense." "It's vegetables," Ellie said. "It's vegetables with subtext." She didn't argue. Conversations dipped when she passed. Not rudely, not dramatically, simply softened, like a door closing gently. Mrs. Finch nodded but did not wave. Counselor Wickham spoke animatedly to Dr. Green and did not glance in her direction. Ellie kept walking. Near the center of the square, a small group had gathered around the Ashwood Trust's information stall, a modest display about upcoming restoration projects and scholarship applications. Margaret Ashwood stood beside it, poised as ever. Richard stood to her right. He was speaking to a pair of residents, gesturing lightly toward a display board. "Stability is the cornerstone of a thriving community," he was saying. "We mustn't allow isolated events to distort decades of good work." Ellie slowed. Sam leaned slightly closer. "He's doing reputation control," he whispered. "Yes," Ellie said quietly. One of the residents, Mrs. Haversham, clutching her market basket, looked uncertain. "But the police found something," she said hesitantly. "A bottle, I mean." Richard's smile remained intact. "The police investigate thoroughly," he said smoothly. "It does not imply wrongdoing." "And the letter?" Mrs. Haversham pressed. "About the orchard?" Richard's jaw tightened, barely. "A photocopy," he said, "of uncertain provenance." Ellie felt her pulse sharpen. "Stamped by the parish council," she said clearly. Heads turned. Richard's eyes found hers immediately. For a split second, something flickered. Irritation, perhaps, or calculation recalibrating. "Miss Davenport," he said, voice polite but edged. "You seem particularly invested." "I prefer accuracy," she replied. A few villagers shifted uncomfortably. Margaret stepped in, tone composed. "This is neither the time nor the place," she said gently. "On the contrary," Ellie said, keeping her voice level, "the orchard is precisely this place." A murmur rippled through the small crowd. Richard's composure tightened visibly now. "This is irresponsible," he said, and the warmth had thinned. "We are discussing a tragic death, not indulging historical revisionism." "Historical revisionism?" Ellie repeated. "Yes," he said sharply. "Dragging up ancient disputes does not serve the living." "And ignoring them did?" she asked. Silence fell more heavily now. Margaret's expression hardened slightly. "Eleanor," she said quietly, "this tone is unhelpful." Richard turned fully toward Ellie. "You have built a narrative," he said, voice lower now, stripped of polish. "A convenient villain, an ancient grievance. It is imaginative." Sam shifted beside her, tense. "I didn't build the toxicology report," Ellie said evenly, "or the timeline." Richard's jaw moved. "Thomas Lumley was reckless," he snapped, and the word landed wrong. Not regretful, dismissive. A few heads turned more sharply. Reckless? Mrs. Havisham echoed faintly. He antagonized people, Richard continued, composure slipping by degrees. He provoked. He exaggerated. Margaret's hand touched his sleeve, a subtle attempt at restraint. Richard did not seem to notice. He would have destroyed this village's reputation for the sake of a book, he said. Ellie felt the shift then. The precise moment control tipped toward exposure. Or for the sake of truth, she said. Richard's eyes flashed. Truth? He said, sharper than he intended. Truth is contextual. The square had grown very quiet. Even the stallholders seemed to be listening. Ellie's voice remained calm. Did Margaret Ellis misunderstand context as well? She asked. The question landed cleanly. Richard's breath caught, only briefly. You have no proof, he said. We have evidence, she replied. His composure cracked then, not explosively, but distinctly. You are a bookseller, he said, and the disdain was unmistakable. Not an investigator. A murmur rippled again, not in agreement, in discomfort. Margaret's grip tightened slightly on his sleeve. That's enough, she said firmly. Richard inhaled sharply, as though only just realizing how far his tone had shifted. He looked around, saw the faces, saw the silence, and corrected himself. Of course, he said, smoothing his voice back into place. Emotions run high. That is understandable. But the damage lingered in the air. Mrs. Havisham stepped back slightly. Dr. Green avoided Richard's gaze. Counselor Wickham cleared his throat but said nothing. Ellie did not move. Richard met her eyes again, and this time there was no warmth, only strain. Be careful what you unearth, he said quietly. Roots run deeper than you think. Ellie held his gaze. So do consequences, she replied. Margaret intervened decisively then. This discussion is over, she said. We will await the police's findings. The crowd dispersed slowly, conversations resuming in subdued tones. Richard stepped away from the stall, adjusting his cufflinks with unnecessary precision. Ellie watched him. His posture remained straight, his expression composed, but his hands were not entirely steady. Sam exhaled once the square had thinned. Well, he murmured. That was not stable. No, Ellie said softly. Margaret approached her a moment later. You pushed him, Margaret said quietly. He pushed himself, Ellie replied. Margaret studied her. You do not understand the scale of what you threaten, she said. Ellie's voice remained gentle. I understand that scale doesn't change facts. Margaret's eyes softened, just slightly. I never intended harm, she said. I know, Ellie replied. Margaret nodded once and returned to the trust stall. Across the square, Richard stood alone for a moment before composing himself and rejoining the crowd. But something had shifted. It was small, subtle, visible only to those paying attention. Composure had faltered, and in a village that prized steadiness above all else, even a crack mattered. Ellie turned away from the square and began walking back toward the shop. Do you think people noticed? Sam asked. Yes, she said. And pressure changes things, she replied. Thanks for listening. Join me next time for Chapter 15.